The air inside the house was thick with an unbearable tension, the kind that suffocated and clawed at the walls. The rain outside pounded against the windows, heavy and relentless, as if the universe itself was warning them, screaming for them to stop before it was too late. Yet, in the dimly lit living room, standing too close to each other, breathing the same air, was Mia and Daniel, two people bound by a forbidden connection that neither of them had asked for, yet couldn't escape. Daniel swallowed hard, his hands clenched at his sides. "Mia, I'm your stepfather. We shouldn't be doing this. For God's sake, stop looking at me like that." Mia's heart pounded. She wasn't a child. She was 23 years old, a grown woman with her own thoughts, her own desires. But Daniel wasn't just any man. He was her stepfather, the only father figure she had known since she was 12. And now her mother was gone. Mia's mother, Sandra, had died 2 months ago in a tragic car accident. One moment, they were a family, the perfect image of love and stability. The next, Sandra was ripped away from them, leaving nothing but silence and grief in her place. For weeks, Mia barely spoke. She barely ate. The house felt like a graveyard, haunted by the echoes of her mother's laughter, the scent of her perfume still lingering in the air. But Daniel was there. At first, he was just doing what any good man would do, taking care of her, making sure she ate, making sure she got out of bed. But somewhere along the way, something changed. Their grief tangled together, twisting into something neither of them could name. They started noticing things they shouldn't. Daniel wasn't just the man who raised her. He was handsome, strong, protective, the way his jaw clenched when he was deep in thought, the way his shirt stretched across his broad shoulders, the way he looked at her sometimes, like he was fighting a battle within himself. And Mia? She wasn't the little girl who used to run around the house. She had grown. Her once innocent eyes now held something darker, something Daniel had no business noticing. And yet, he did. It all came to a boiling point one night. Mia had been out late. Too late. Daniel had been waiting, pacing, his mind racing with worry. And when she finally walked through the door at 2 a.m., his frustration exploded. "Where the hell have you been?" he snapped, his voice sharp, his eyes burning with something she couldn't name. Mia rolled her eyes, kicking off her heels. "I'm an adult, Daniel. You're not my father. You don't get to control me." His jaw tightened. "I raised you, Mia. And after everything, after losing Sandra, you think I can just sit here and not care? You think I can just stop protecting you?" She stepped closer, her breath warm against his skin. "Then stop looking at me like that." He froze. Silence. The weight of unspoken truths crashed down on them, and then she reached up, brushing her fingers against his cheek. Daniel grabbed her wrist, his grip firm, desperate. His breathing was ragged, his pulse hammering against his skin. "Mia, this is wrong." Her lips parted. "Then tell me to stop." A war raged inside him. She was his stepdaughter, but not by blood. She was grown, but she still felt like forbidden territory. And yet, in that moment, with the storm raging outside and the house feeling too small to contain what was happening between them, he didn't know if he had the strength to walk away. The room felt like it was on fire. Not because of the warmth, but because of the tension. The kind of tension that makes the air thick, that makes every breath feel heavier, that makes silence louder than words. Daniel still held Mia's wrist, his fingers pressing against her skin, but he wasn't pushing her away. He should have. He should have let go. He should have walked away. But he didn't. Mia's dark brown eyes burned into him, searching, challenging, daring him to be honest with himself. She had never seen him like this before, so vulnerable, so conflicted, so raw. His usual controlled demeanor was slipping, and for the first time, he looked lost. "Say it," she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. "Say what?" he asked, though he knew exactly what she meant. "That you don't feel this. That you don't want me." Daniel inhaled sharply, his grip tightening for just a second, before he finally forced himself to release her. He turned away, rubbing his face with both hands as if that would erase the thoughts in his mind, the desire clawing at his chest. "This is crazy," he muttered. "This is so damn wrong." Mia stepped closer. "Then why aren't you leaving?" Daniel exhaled harshly, his jaw tightening. He needed to get out of this house. He needed to put space between them before he did something he could never take back. Without another word, he stormed past her, grabbing his car keys from the table. Where are you going? Mia asked, her voice laced with panic. Anywhere but here, he shot back, yanking the door open, and then he was gone. The night that changed everything. Mia stood frozen for what felt like an eternity. The cold wind from the open door bit at her skin, but she barely noticed. He left. He ran, like a coward, like someone afraid of what he felt. And maybe he was. Her fingers trembled as she reached for the glass of water on the table, taking a sip to calm herself. But it didn't help. Her mind was racing. Why did it hurt so much that he walked away? She should be relieved, right? If he had stayed, what would have happened? Would he have kissed her? Would she have let him? Her heart pounded as she sat on the couch, pulling her knees to her chest. She wasn't sure how much time passed. An hour, maybe 2, but the sound of the front door unlocking made her sit up straight. Daniel. She turned just as he stepped inside, his shirt damp from the rain, his hair disheveled, his expression unreadable. Mia swallowed. You came back. Daniel didn't answer immediately. He walked in slowly, shutting the door behind him. He looked like a man who had just spent hours fighting himself. And lost. I tried, he admitted, his voice hoarse. I tried to leave. I told myself I'd drive far away, clear my head, make this go away. Mia's breath hitched. And? His eyes locked onto hers, dark and intense. And all I could think about was you. Silence filled the space between them, heavy and suffocating. Mia stood up, taking slow, measured steps toward him. Daniel. I know, he said, his voice raw. I know this is wrong. I know I shouldn't feel this way. But damn it, Mia, I can't pretend anymore. Mia's hands trembled as she reached up, touching his face, feeling the roughness of his stubble beneath her fingertips. Daniel inhaled sharply, his hands gripping her wrists again, but this time, he didn't pull away. You're the only thing that makes sense anymore, she whispered. Daniel's breathing was heavy, his chest rising and falling, as if he was battling himself all over again. But then, he did the one thing he had been fighting against all this time. He leaned in. Not all the way. Just enough for their breaths to mingle, for her lips to be a mere inch from his. Just enough for temptation to grip them both so tightly it was impossible to escape. Mia's lips parted slightly, anticipation crackling between them like fire. But just before he could close the distance, his phone rang. The sharp sound cut through the moment like a knife, and just like that, reality came crashing down. Daniel jerked back, cursing under his breath as he pulled his phone from his pocket. A name flashed on the screen that made his blood run cold. Sandra's mother. Mia saw the name too, and for the first time, shame crept into her expression. Daniel hesitated before answering. Hello? Daniel. The elderly woman's voice trembled on the other end. I need to see you. Now. Secrets revealed. Daniel didn't know why, but the urgency in Sandra's mother's voice sent a chill down his spine. Something wasn't right. I'll be there soon, he said, ending the call before looking at Mia. Her expression had changed. The intensity from before was gone, replaced by confusion, maybe even guilt. You should go, she said quietly. Daniel hesitated, his eyes searching hers as if trying to hold on to something before it slipped away. Then, without another word, he turned and left. Mia stood there for a long time, staring at the door. Her fingers curled into fists. What just happened? The drive to Sandra's mother's house felt endless. Rain pounded against the windshield, each drop echoing the storm inside Daniel's chest. His mind was a tangled mess. Mia, the moment they almost shared, and now this unexpected call. Something was wrong. He could feel it. When he pulled up to the house, he barely had time to knock before the door swung open. Sandra's mother, Mrs. Evans, stood there, her frail frame wrapped in a shawl, her eyes dark with worry. Come in, she said, her voice strained. Daniel stepped inside, and the air was thick with something unspoken. Sit, she said, gesturing toward the worn-out couch. He sat, heart pounding. What's going on? She lowered herself into the armchair across from him, hands shaking as she clasped them together. I've kept this from you for too long, Daniel, but I can't anymore. You need to know the truth. His stomach tightened. The truth about what? She swallowed hard, her gaze flickering to the framed photo of Sandra on the mantelpiece. About Mia. Daniel's breath caught. Mia? Mrs. Evans nodded slowly, her fingers twisting in her lap. There's something you don't know, something Sandra never told you before she passed. His hands clenched into fists. What are you trying to say? She inhaled deeply. Mia isn't just your stepdaughter, Daniel. She's... A sharp knock at the door cut her off. Mrs. Evans stiffened. Daniel shot to his feet, the tension in the air snapping like a live wire. "Are you expecting someone?" he asked. She shook her head, looking pale. Cautiously, Daniel moved toward the door. He hesitated before unlocking it, then pulled it open. His breath hitched. Standing in the doorway, drenched from the rain, was Mia. A night of reckoning. Dale barely had time to react before Mia pushed past him into the house. Mrs. Evans gasped. "Mia, what are you doing here?" Mia's dark eyes locked onto Daniel's. "I had to come. I had to know what was happening." He raked a hand through his damp hair, frustration and relief colliding. "Mia, you shouldn't be here." She ignored him, turning to Mrs. Evans. "What were you about to tell him? What about me?" The older woman hesitated, her face full of conflict. Daniel's patience snapped. "Enough of this secrecy. Just tell me what's going on." Mrs. Evans closed her eyes for a long moment before finally speaking. And when she did, the world tilted beneath Daniel's feet. "Daniel, Mia isn't Sandra's biological daughter." Silence. It took a full 5 seconds for the words to register in Daniel's mind. He blinked, staring at her. "What?" he breathed. Mrs. Evans exhaled shakily. "Sandra, she couldn't have children. She never told you because she didn't want you to see her differently. Mia, she was adopted." Daniel stumbled back a step, his pulse hammering in his ears. Mia's lips parted in shock. "That's not true." Mrs. Evans looked at her with tired, sorrowful eyes. "It is, sweetheart. You were just a baby when she brought you home." Daniel felt like the room was closing in on him. "Why didn't she tell me?" Mrs. Evans hesitated. "She was afraid you might not accept Mia the same way if you knew the truth." A lump formed in Daniel's throat. Everything he thought he knew had just crumbled in an instant. Mia wasn't Sandra's daughter, which meant she wasn't really his stepdaughter. The breaking point. Mia's breathing was shaky. "So all this time, my life was a lie?" Mrs. Evans' eyes softened. "Sandra loved you, Mia. That was never a lie." Mia's hands curled into fists. "But you let me believe he was my stepfather." She turned to Daniel, her expression unreadable. "You let me believe we could never—" She stopped herself. Daniel's jaw tightened, his entire body coiled with tension. "Mia, don't!" But it was too late. The words hung in the air, heavy, charged with something neither of them was ready to face. Mrs. Evans looked between them, realization dawning in her tired eyes. "Oh my God!" Mia took a shaky step back, looking at Daniel as if waiting for him to say something. Anything. But he didn't, because he didn't know what the hell to say. This changed everything, but it also changed nothing. Because even though they weren't bound by blood or legal ties anymore, the lines had already been blurred. And neither of them knew how to go back. The air in the room was suffocating. The truth had been spoken, but instead of bringing relief, it had unleashed chaos. Daniel stood frozen, staring at Mia, his heart pounding so loud he could barely hear his own thoughts. "She's not my stepdaughter." Weight of those words crashed over him like a tidal wave. Mia's breathing was shallow, her hands trembling at her sides. "So, everything I believed about my life was a lie?" Mrs. Evans hesitated, then reached out toward her. "Mia, sweetheart, Sandra loved you. That's real." Mia flinched, stepping back, but she let me believe something that wasn't true. Her gaze snapped to Daniel. "And you thought of me as your stepdaughter all these years, but now that you know I'm not," Daniel took a sharp breath. "Mia, stop." Her lips quivered, hurt flashing in her eyes. "Why? You can't deny it anymore, Daniel. You felt it, didn't you? That night at the house, the way you looked at me, the way you almost—" "Enough!" His voice cracked through the room like a whip. Mia went silent, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Mrs. Evans slowly stood, her face pale. "Oh, dear Lord, this isn't right." Daniel turned away, dragging a hand down his face. His whole body felt like it was on fire. This was a nightmare. A betrayal to Sandra. A betrayal to himself. A betrayal to everything that should have been untouchable. But no matter how much he tried to fight it, something had already shifted. The escape. Mia turned abruptly and grabbed her purse. Daniel frowned. "Where are you going?" She wiped her tears angrily. "I can't stay here. I need to breathe, to think, to get away from all of this." Mrs. Evans stepped forward. "Mia, it's pouring outside. At least wait until the storm clears." But Mia was already at the door. Daniel's gut twisted. "Mia, don't be reckless." She turned back, her voice shaking. "Reckless? You think I'm the one being reckless?" She gave a hollow laugh. I've spent my whole life trying to be what people expected of me. But now I don't even know who I am. Before either of them could stop her, she yanked the door open and ran out into the night. Daniel cursed under his breath and followed. The rain came down in violent sheets, soaking Mia instantly as she stumbled toward the street. "Mia!" Daniel called after her, his voice barely cutting through the storm. She didn't stop. His chest tightened as he watched her step onto the road, barely looking where she was going. The headlights of a car appeared in the distance, growing closer. Too close! Panic shot through Daniel. "Mia! Look out!" At the last second, she turned, her face pale, her body frozen. The car skidded, tires screeching. Daniel lunged forward, grabbing her just in time. They fell to the ground together, the car swerving past them, horn blaring into the night. For a moment, everything was still. Then Mia broke. She clung to Daniel's soaked shirt, sobbing against his chest. Her entire body trembled. I don't know what's happening to me. I feel like I'm losing myself." Daniel's arms tightened around her, his heart hammering. She wasn't just shaken, she was broken, and it tore at something deep inside him. "You're not losing yourself," he whispered, barely recognizing his own voice. "You're just finding out the truth." Mia sniffled against him. "And what if the truth is something I don't want?" Daniel swallowed hard, his fingers curling around her wet hair. "Then we face it, together." She pulled back slightly, her lips parted, her eyes searching his. "Daniel," his breath caught. The storm raged around them, but inside that moment, everything stood still. They were too close. Too close. But neither of them moved away, because for the first time, they weren't stepfather and stepdaughter anymore. They were something else. Something dangerous, something neither of them knew how to stop. The rain had stopped, but the damage was already done. Mia sat curled on the couch in Daniel's living room, her wet clothes sticking to her skin, her body trembling. The weight of everything was pressing down on her, so much that she could barely breathe. Daniel paced the room, his jaw clenched, his hands running through his soaked hair. He was struggling too. What happened out there? The way they had looked at each other, the way his arms had wrapped around her. It wasn't right. It wasn't supposed to happen. But it did. And now neither of them could take it back. Mia swallowed hard, finally breaking the silence. Daniel, his back stiffened, but he didn't turn around. She took a shaky breath. "We need to talk about this." "No, we don't," he said immediately, his voice hoarse. "This never happened. That night at the house, tonight, none of it happened." Mia's chest ached at his words. "You can't just erase it, Daniel. You can't pretend you don't feel it too." He spun around, his eyes blazing. "Feel what, Mia? What do you think this is?" She stood up, her voice rising. "I don't know, but I know it's real. I know that no matter how much you try to push it away, it's there." Daniel exhaled sharply, his hands balling into fists. "Mia, I raised you. I was your stepfather for years. But you're not my stepfather anymore." She whispered. The words hung in the air like a curse. Daniel's breathing was ragged, his body rigid. He knew that. He had told himself that. But hearing it out loud made it worse, made it real. Mia took a step closer. "You can fight it all you want, but you can't deny it. That night at the house, when you almost kissed me, that wasn't just a mistake. And tonight, when you held me." "Stop," he warned, his voice low, dangerous. She took another step. "Tell me you feel nothing, and I'll walk away." His jaw tightened. "Mia, say it," she challenged, her voice breaking. "Look me in the eyes and tell me you don't feel anything for me. Tell me you haven't been fighting it just as much as I have." Daniel's breathing was uneven, his fists clenching so hard his knuckles turned white. Everything in him screamed to push her away, to stop this before it went too far. But when he met her eyes, he couldn't say it, because it would be a lie. Mia's lips trembled. "Daniel." His control snapped. Before he could stop himself, he grabbed her, his fingers curling around her arms. His eyes burned into hers, his chest rising and falling rapidly. "This is wrong," he rasped. She shivered under his touch. "Then let me go." But he didn't. His grip tightened. Mia swallowed, her pulse hammering. "If you don't want this, then push me away." Daniel's body shook with restraint. Every muscle in him was wound tight. His mind screamed at him to stop this before it destroyed them both. But his hands wouldn't let go. His heart wouldn't let go. Mia reached up, brushing her fingers against his jaw, and that was it. That was all it took. Daniel crushed his lips against hers. The moment their mouths met, it was like the entire world shattered around them. Years of restraint, guilt, and forbidden longing exploded in that single kiss. It was desperate, messy, wrong, but neither of them stopped. The aftermath. The morning sun streamed through the window, bathing the room in golden light. But there was no warmth in it. Mia sat on the edge of the bed, gripping the sheets tightly. She hadn't moved for hours. Daniel stood near the door, fully dressed, staring at the floor. His face was unreadable, but his entire body screamed with tension. Neither of them spoke, because there were no words for what had happened. Mia's throat was dry, but she forced herself to speak. "What now?" Daniel exhaled sharply. "I don't know." She turned to look at him, her eyes searching. "Do you regret it?" A long silence. Then, yes. The word hit her like a knife to the chest. Mia's fingers curled into the sheets. "You're lying." He finally looked at her, his expression tormented. "Mia, this can't happen again." Her heart clenched. "Why not?" "Because it's wrong." His voice was firm, but his eyes told another story. Mia stood up slowly, crossing the room until she was inches from him. "Then tell me to leave." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Mia, tell me to walk away, and I will." His hands clenched at his sides, his body rigid. She waited and waited, but the words never came, because he couldn't say them. Mia let out a shaky breath. "You don't want me to go." Daniel squeezed his eyes shut. "I do." "Then why aren't you opening the door?" His eyes snapped open, and the storm inside them nearly stole her breath. His chest rose and fell. His hands trembled. Then, finally, he turned and walked out, leaving her standing there alone. The final decision. Mia stared at the door for what felt like hours, waiting, hoping, praying he would come back, but he didn't. And when she finally found the strength to move, she knew what she had to do. She couldn't stay here. She couldn't wait for him to decide whether he wanted her or not. She had to leave. With tears burning in her eyes, she grabbed her things and walked out the door. She didn't look back, and neither did he. But as she disappeared down the street, a single thought echoed in both their minds. This isn't over. It will never be over.